Welcome, guys. I hope you're enjoying the summer break. F1 will return soon enough. Today, though, we are talking F1, and it's full of legendary cars, but some of the greatest machines ever built never even started a Grand Prix. Some were banned before they raced, others bankrupt entire teams. One was simply too fast for its own good, and one actually came back from the dead to become a world champion. These are F1's greatest ghost cars. Let's get to it. Welcome, guys. If you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button, and if you enjoy the video, hit the like. Why do ghost cars even exist? Every F1 car has a purpose. Race. Yet throughout history, millions have been spent designing cars that never even saw the starting grid. Some were victims of politics, some were victims of financial collapse. Others simply arrived at the wrong moment in history, and today we're looking at 6 incredible F1 machines whose stories ended before they even truly began, except one. We'll start first, though, with, the McLaren MP418. And if Adrian Newey builds a Formula 1 car, you expect it to race. The MP418 never did. And that's remarkable considering just how revolutionary it actually was. Back in 2003, Ferrari were dominating Formula 1. Michael Schumacher had won 4 world championships in a row. McLaren needed something extraordinary to stop them. Adrian Newey, though, responded with what many engineers believe was still and is still described probably as one of the most aggressive Formula 1 designs ever created. Everything about the MP418 was smaller. The side pods were tiny. The rear packaging was unbelievably tight. The cockpit sat lower. The entire philosophy was to shrink the car around the driver and an engine to improve airflow. On paper, it looked sensational. During testing, it was incredibly quick. Some reports suggested it was already faster than McLaren's existing car. There was just one problem. It couldn't survive. The tightly packaged engine constantly overheated. Hydraulic failures became common. The gearbox repeatedly broke down. Then came the crashes. Alexander Wurz, who was a test driver at the time, suffered a huge accident. Kimi Raikkonen also heavily crashed during testing. Meanwhile, McLaren's older MP417D kept delivering podiums. Even more importantly, Kimi was fighting Michael Schumacher for the World Championship. Ron Dennis, team manager at the time, had a decision to make: risk the championship on an unreliable new car or stick to the proven machine. He chose safety. The MP14 was, quietly abandoned. It never raced. Ironically, though, many of its ideas lived on in future McLarens, proving the concept wasn't wrong. It was just simply ahead of its time. Next up, the Lotus 88. If the McLaren was killed by reliability, the Lotus 88 was killed by politics. To understand why, you have to understand Colin Chapman. Chapman was just interested in building the fastest Formula 1 car. He wanted to outsmart everyone else. In 1981, Formula 1 teams were exploiting ground effect. The problem was that the FIA introduced rules requiring a minimum ride height to reduce the dangerous cornering speeds. Most teams lost performance. Chapman, though, what if the driver is sitting in one chassis and the aerodynamics sitting in another? The result was the Lotus 88. It had 2 chassis. The inner chassis held the driver. The outer chassis generated the downforce. The driver remained comfortable and within the regulations, while the aerodynamics platform stayed low to the ground. It was simply just pure engineering genius. The FIA initially passed the car. Lotus practiced with it. Then rival teams protested. The governing body reversed its position, and, the Lotus was black flagged. Chapman appealed. He argued independent experts believed the design complied with the written regulations. It didn't matter. Politics had won. The Lotus 88 never started a Grand Prix. Many historians still believe it could have been, it could have completely changed F1 over the years had it been allowed to compete. It's such a shame we never really got to see it. Next up, the Lola T97 30. This story shows just how brutal Formula One can be. Lola had built racing cars for decades. They knew motorsport, but Formula One was different. Originally, Lola planned to enter in 1998. That would give them plenty of time to test and develop the car, but then sponsors MasterCard demanded they race the car a year earlier. Lola agreed, and it proved disastrous. The T970 barely tested. Development wasn't finished. The aerodynamics weren't ready. Then came Melbourne, the opening race of the 1997 season. Vincenzo Sosbury, I hope I've got that right, qualified over 11 seconds slower than Jacques Villeneuve, who was on pole position. Both Lola drivers failed the 107% rule. Neither qualified. Imagine spending tens of millions only to discover your Formula One car just wasn't fast enough to start the race. MasterCard immediately withdrew support. The team collapsed before the next Grand Prix. The T9730 had officially entered Formula One, but it never actually raced. We then go to, well, the US F1 Type 1. The next ghost car wasn't destroyed by speed, it was destroyed by promise. When the FIA opened applications for new teams in 2010, US F1 became one of the biggest stories in motorsport. An American Formula One team built in America, run by Americans. The media loved it. Factories opened, design work began, drivers were linked, sponsors arrived. Everything looked real, except behind closed doors, the money just wasn't there. Suppliers weren't being paid. Engineers left. Development slowed to a crawl. The chassis was never properly completed. The team never reached testing, never reached qualifying, never reached Formula One. The dream disappeared before it became a reality. And it's sadly what was the times in and around 2010, because next up we've got the Toyota TF110. Toyota's story might be the most frustrating yet, because they were getting good. Toyota entered F1 in 2002 and with one of the biggest budgets the sports have ever seen. Yet year after year, they were just disappointing. That never changed. The 2009 regulations suited the Toyota perfectly. Yona Trulli started getting pole positions. The team regularly started fighting near the front. Engineers kind of finally understood the aerodynamic regulations, and that gave enormous confidence for 2010. The TF110, as it was described, was, well, developed almost entirely around the improving already competitive package. The designer Pascal Vassalon later described its aerodynamic figures as exceptional. It reportedly featured an incredibly advanced diffuser and one of the earliest versions of the F-duct that other teams, McLaren most notably, adapted soon after. Only one private shakedown ever took place, though, and then Toyota's board announced they were leaving F1. Just like that, one of the most promising cars they've ever built became a museum exhibition. No one never know if it could have ever won a race. But after spending well over $1 billion on Formula One, Toyota's final car never made the grid. And then comes the special one, car number 6, the Honda RA109, the champion that refused to die. Every story so far has ended in disappointment. This one, though, doesn't. Back in 2008, Honda made a huge gamble. Instead of fighting for results that season, they basically shifted all their results and all their resources towards the brand new 2009 regs. Ross Brawn, the hero, knew the rule changes would completely reset F1. If Honda got it right, they could leap from the back of the grid to the very front. Hundreds of engineers worked on what became the RA109. The car looked unlike anything Honda had ever built. It featured new wide front wing, narrow rear wing, slick tyres, the chassis optimized around the biggest aerodynamic reset in years. Inside the factory, confidence was growing. The wind tunnel numbers looked incredible. Then, December 2008, the global financial crisis struck, and Honda announced it was leaving Formula One immediately. Overnight, the project was dead. Hundreds of employees faced losing their jobs. The RA109 looked destined to become another forgotten ghost car. Then Ross Brawn stepped up, did what we now know as something absolutely extraordinary, and it's special. He led a management buyout, purchased the team for a symbolic £1. But there was one huge problem. Honda's engine program had gone, and without an engine, the car was basically useless. Mercedes stepped in as the heroes of the day, probably much to their regret in later years, because they agreed to supply power units. Engineers worked around the clock to redesign the rear end of the chassis to fit this new engine. The car was renamed the BGP 001. Brawn GP was rebirthed. When pre-season testing began, everyone realized something unbelievable. It wasn't just quick, it was dominant. Jenson Button won 6 of the opening 7 races. The team claimed both drivers and constructors championship. Just think about it. The greatest ghost car in Formula One history did eventually race. It simply did so wearing someone else's name. Honda never officially raced the RA109, but the engineering that went into it became one of the greatest underdog stories Formula One's ever seen, and ensured ghost cars would never truly be forgotten. F1 is often just remembered for the cars that won the championships, but sometimes the most fascinating stories belong to the cars that never even started a race. Some too radical, some too late, some just simply ran out of money, and one refused to stay dead, and it just became something truly special. Let me know in the comments, which F1 ghost car do you wish made it into the grid? And if you have enjoyed this dive into F1's forgotten history, don't forget to hit the subscribe button for future videos. Hit the like if you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you on the next one.